I want to bring in Simone Sztrigler. She witnessed the quake. She was working on the 19th floor of her building when it happened. Simone, how are you? What can you tell us?
Hi, Rena. How are you? This was worse than 10 days ago that we had another quake. It actually moved a lot. Unfortunately, Mexico City right now, it's a little collapsed. We have a lot of buildings that went to the ground, a lot of people stuck in some places, and a lot of window shatters and everything. So we're taking care. We're trying to help with other people from next buildings and from next offices to see that they are okay, and hopefully we can get back to work and together with everything we have for tomorrow morning.
Are people outside of the buildings right now? Are there concerned that there could be these aftershocks and people remaining outside of the buildings?
Yes. Some of our buildings are outside actually of the buildings because they need to do inspections because of gas and electricity, and to see if the building is okay so they can come again to work. We're still outside, and we're still waiting for Protección Civil, which is part of a civil organization that works to see that everything is okay, and hopefully we can enter the building in a few minutes or maybe a few hours.
We're hearing reports of fires. We're also seeing smoke in some of the aftermath video. Yeah. What can you tell us about those fires? Do you know what's causing it?
No, we actually don't know. They're still looking into it. They're all over the news here in Mexico City. They're reporting that they should always report in case if you see something in your building, if you see a fire, and if you see anything, you should be calling the police and the fire department so they can come and help you out. I'm just looking at the news right now. We're actually still on the ground floor of the building, and we're watching Twitter and the news on our phones to see that everything is okay. And also our families.
Of course, the family is a big concern for everybody right now. What are they concerned about when it comes to gas leaks? What are you hearing?
Well, I know there's already 2 or 3 fires around the city, not in the location that I am right now. They were on the news a few minutes ago, and they're in some of the buildings. I don't know how big they are actually, or what happened. They say that it would be probably from some gas leaks in the buildings.
All right, Simone Sztrigler, glad you made it out of the 19th floor of that building in time. We want to thank you for explaining the situation on the ground in Mexico City.
Thank you, Rena. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Well, right now, we want to play out some sound from CBS News reporter Adrian Bard, who was in Mexico City at the time of the earthquake and spoke with CBS News Radio just a short time after.
I'm in an area of Mexico City that's on volcanic rock, and generally we don't feel earthquakes in this part of the city. This one we felt, and we felt it tremendously. For the first time in my 30 years in Mexico, during an earthquake, there were things falling off of shelves. Actually, we ran outside and just missed getting hit. We just missed getting hit by a little statue that's not anchored down and fell off and chipped. When I got outside, I found all the neighbors on my street outside, everyone looking worried. We don't have any cell phone service right now. Electricity seems to be working, but boy, it was quite a strong movement, and it was a movement that lasted for a long time. When it first started, you felt like a jolt, and then there was a kind of a rolling movement that really just seemed never-ending. There were pictures and frames on the shelf, and a couple of books that flew off, and we actually had like a small wooden statue that fell off a ledge that probably should have been anchored in retrospect, and a piece of that chipped off. It was a very scary earthquake. Let me say that. I've been on a lot of these quakes living in Mexico City. This one was one that really felt scary, and perhaps because, we are less than, I think, 2 weeks away from having had an 8.2 earthquake here. So clearly the ground has not stopped shaking and settling. I was in Acapulco during the 1985 earthquake, and this quake I felt it as strongly as I felt that quake. That was more than 30 years ago, of course. In the last 30 years, this is the biggest one that I felt being in this area of Mexico City on volcanic soil. Sometimes there are, quakes over 6 that are felt in other parts of the city, and we don't feel it here. It's very likely that we are closer to the epicenter of this quake than we were to the big 8.2 quake that hit in Chiapas and Oaxaca. I have to say this is probably the scariest earthquake that I myself have felt, and that's having grown up in California. This was just a quake that was very intense. The movement was at first a jolt and then rolling, and it just seemed like it didn't stop. The first instinct, of course, is to get outside. And let me tell you, after all that we've seen in Chiapas and Oaxaca of entire buildings, city halls, and churches collapsing, it's a different thing. You don't sit inside and wait anymore. That duck and cover thing that they're telling people has kind of gone by the wayside for me. I felt it start to shake very intensely, and I got outside immediately and could still feel it shaking just on the raw ground.